So we're getting started here. Okay. Welcome to Star Talk. We have here today Barbara Karnes, and she is a wonderful person to talk to about end of life and decision making we need to make during those times. And I'd love for you to share what got you started into working with the end of life.
Ah, I am a registered nurse and I graduated from nursing school. Oh, I hate to even say it, 1962, and thought I'd made a huge mistake. Should have been a social worker, not a nurse. So I never worked in the medical model. I married, raised a family, and in the 70s, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came forward and started talking about how we were treating people who were dying. And I thought this really kind of sparked an interest. So I went back and took a refresher course in nursing. And I went to a hospice and started working as a nurse at a hospice. When I look back at that, I believe my never having worked in a hospital or in the medical model was the gift that I brought because I didn't know how the establishment, I put that in quotes, took care of people who were dying. And so I kind of made it up as I went along. And being at the bedside as people were actually dying, they taught me what it's like to die. They were my teachers. Their families were my teachers because it was up close and personal. And I noticed that everyone's doing similar things. The food, the sleep, the socialization. I noticed that because I was there. And I think that's the gift that I've been able to give.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I used to work for hospice too, and it's an honor to be by people when they're passing away. As you say, they do teach us. They teach us a lot. And one thing I also wanted to touch upon doing that, being the stream of work that you do is do you give, like, I know you have a pamphlet out that I saw on your website. You have a pamphlet that you give out, the pamphlet, The Death and Dying. Do you
Yes.
give that out,
Um,
or people
I
request it, or
want it's a booklet. It's large print, 15 pages, short, simple, direct, but gentle. No medical terminology in it at all. And how that came to be is one night I was on call, actually 3 o'clock in the morning. I was at someone's home. The family had called. They were concerned about mom. And mom was really, she wasn't dying that moment. It was days before death. But I'm sitting in the living room with the family and I'm explaining to them what's happening, what mom's doing, and why it's this. She's doing a good job. This is how you die. And one of the daughters was taking notes. And I thought, oh my goodness, she shouldn't have to be taking notes on what I'm telling her. This is such important information. So that weekend, and this is before computers, this is, you know, uh, legal pad in hand, I wrote out what I wanted families to know about the signs of approaching death. And I started handing that out to my families. And then one day I thought, this is really cold and impersonal, this sheet of paper. So I put the information in a booklet form and printed it and handed it out to families. And it kind of took on a life of its own and is around the world now at this point, what,
That's
30 million
wonderful.
or something.
That's wonderful. Now, do you also discuss with families like that they should have the discussions with the person that's passing away? Like, don't wait till the person dies to, find out what they want and all that instead of leaving a mess for, you pass away and you leave this mess for other people to deal with. Do you discuss with them how important it is to have those discussions?
Oh, absolutely. And I will say it's when you really want to have that discussion is before you need it, before you need to. Actually, we should have everyone should have an advance directive being here's what I want if I am dying. Here's what I want done from the time we're 18 on. Because if we don't have an advance directive, then, and something happens to us, then we will die according to the medical model. And the medical model may not be how we would choose to die. If you can fix me, I want you to do everything you can. But if you can't fix me, then I don't want to go through all these treatments, all this. I just want to have the time to put my affairs in order, to say goodbyes and I love you. And if we don't have an advance directive, then we may not have that opportunity.
Can you also explain? A lot of people don't know I have a living will and the directive. So, do not resuscitate order. A lot of people don't know what the difference between a living will is and having, the do not resuscitate order.
Okay. You can put in your advance directive, if this and this and this happen, then I don't want CPR. I don't want everything to keep me alive. However, it's the DNR, the do not resuscitate, that is really a legal and listened to document. And that really needs to be signed by a physician, and have it done. If you've been diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, talk to your physician. Here's what I want. Here's what I don't want. And if you don't want to be resuscitated when your heart stops and it's really, I don't want to say brutal, but it's really hard and invasive. And if you've got a life-threatening illness, then you're just going to have to die again in a short time if they're able to start your heart. So there's a very appropriate time to have a discussion with your physician and say, if this and this and this is happening, I want a no code, a do not resuscitate on my orders. Because if it's not an order, then the medical establishment will try and start your heart.
Yeah, the medical establishment will do everything they possibly can to make sure that you're alive. That's why it's so important, if that's not something that you want, that you do your living will, that you do your do not resuscitate. Doesn't matter how old you are. It's really important. Like you said, I think anyone over 18 should have one. I think it's an important conversation to have with the family way before anything happens. And that
And
way and also by having that conversation way before anything happens, there's not all that charge behind it.
yep, I was just going to say the same thing. If you can have it before you need to have it, then you're not caught up in the emotions of the moment. And you can really come from a mental standpoint, a mental level, and make your decisions. Our emotions often cloud or distort what we really want.
All right. And in your experience, at least my experience was, I didn't really see anyone die tragically. Like none of the deaths were traumatic. Do you find that the percentage of deaths are usually calmer? That, people have this vision in their head that to watch someone die is horrible. And in my experience, I haven't watched one that has been horrible. They've all been very peaceful. Um, I like to share that because to destigmatize what it's like to die at home.
We don't have any role models on what it's like to die. We have television and the movies, but they don't really count because that's not how people die. And our fear of what it's going to look like, we're all going to have it to some level. But if we have knowledge ahead of time, this is how people die. This is what they look like. This is how they're going to breathe. There's going to be pee and poop and sounds and movements that are normal and natural. But if we don't know that, then we're going to think something bad is happening. And most people, they're not going to say something profound and then close their eyes and be dead. They're going to make sounds and movements that don't make any sense. But most people are non-responsive in the days and the hours before death, so that you have an opportunity to go in and talk to the person. That's one of the gifts we can give, is when they're non-responsive. It's easier to talk to someone who's not going to argue back, to go in and talk about the good times, talk about the challenging times. And that person who's dying, non-responsive, they're processing their life. And they've been doing that for months, but they're saying, what have I done? Who have I touched? What has it been about? And we can help them put those pieces of their puzzled life, which we all have, together. And so if for the caregivers, we can neutralize the fear and help them understand that mom's doing what she's supposed to be doing, and it's not necessarily pretty, then we can give everyone that gift of, do I say closure? That ability to say goodbye without all the fear of what we think we're perceiving as being abnormal.
Exactly. That's so true. The other thing I was going to say was, you were talking about, the death and dying process as how we educate people. I also tell people, the person that's dying, to make sure they know they can advocate for themselves as well. If there's something they want or don't want, they can still advocate for it. As long as they're still speaking, they can always advocate for anything that they need or may need.
In the months before death, absolutely. You want to know what the person wants. You want to know what you can give them, what you can do for them, how you can help them. In the weeks before death, 1 to 3 generally is when what I call labor kicks in. And when labor begins, the person is really otherworldly. They're really not tuned into what's going on around and about them. Think of a woman, there's so many similarities between birth and death. And think of a woman in labor. And as she's trying to push that little baby out, she's not going to have a major conversation with you. She's not really caring what's going on around and about her. Her job, her work is to get the baby out. Well, so it is when we're in labor to leave this world. Very similar. We're not looking at what's going on around and about us. Our job is to be birthed into the other world. And so that's what we're doing. And what's going on around and about us really is not a focus at all.
Yeah, the other thing that's very important to remind people of is that when they're passing away, they can hear you. So even if they're unresponsive, how important it is to talk to people, play music, music that is dear to them. That'll also help them transition easier, having stuff around them and people talk to them about the things that mean something to them. But people forget they can hear, even if they're out of it, even if they're in a coma at some point, they can still hear you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very important point to make.
So, what are some tips that you would say that you'd give to a family whose person is in hospice?
Okay. Eating is a big challenge for caregivers when a person is approaching death, because part of leaving this world is we will eat less and less and less to the point we're not eating at all. And a caregiver, you know, we use food and have so many feelings around food. It's not just that it nourishes our body. There's emotional involvement with food. We socialize over food. We cry over food. It's an emotional thing. And when our loved one who is dying, they're going to stop eating because they don't want the energy that food brings. They're letting go. They're not staying here. And so that's one of the important pieces of knowledge that we need to give to caregivers is to always, always offer food. Just don't force it. When the
Exactly.
body is preparing to die, don't force them to eat. That's important. Sleep. Have a caregiver understand that sleep recharges our battery.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're losing our battery, our energy, we're going to sleep more and more and more. So you want to prioritize in the months before death how a person's going to use their awake time and allow them to gradually sleep more and more. The other thing that caregivers need to know and understand in the labor of dying is socialization. In the months before death, we start to withdraw from the world around us, not interested in the football game that's coming up and everyone's so excited about, doesn't even care, even though for their whole life they were this huge fan. And then it gets to be, don't have the church ladies come over. I'm too tired. And then the person goes completely within. And that's what they're supposed to do. They're disconnecting all their threads. They're packing their bags of memories and experiences to take with them. And if our caregivers understand, and this is what I wrote in the booklet, Gone from My Sight, if caregivers understand that, then they can support and guide their loved one through this experience. Now, I have another booklet, since I'm on the topic of booklets, called The 11th Hour. And that is the companion that goes with Gone from My Sight. Gone from My Sight says, here's what's happening. And the 11th hour says to the caregiver, here's what you do while all this is happening. They go together, and I think that they can bring a source of guidance and understanding to what is normally not just a sad experience because our special person is leaving, but it's a scary experience because we don't know what it's like and what's going to happen. You know, grandma used to live at home, and grandma died in the upstairs bedroom. And we were all there, and we learned how people died because we were there. And then our medical establishment reached a point where you died in the hospital, and generally nobody was there. You were in a room at the end of the hall. And then we moved from dying in hospitals, we moved to dying in nursing facilities. And again, mom was at the end of the hall and generally alone. We're coming full circle where mom is dying at home. Mom, grandma always wanted to die at home. But now we're helping the family and we're bringing it full circle.
Absolutely. A couple things I always like to say too is just to remind people is give them like a sheet of things they could be doing. They could be reading a book. Like I said, they could be playing music. You're talking about socialization. The other thing I think that people are unaware of is when people are passing, they may be looking over someplace or talking to their loved ones on the other side. You know, when they start to disassociate and they're between worlds. A lot of people are like, what's going on? They don't understand that these things happen. So can you talk on those subjects? Because that's important for people to know that these things do happen.
They happen a lot. And I don't have an explanation of why or what's occurring, but I like to think, based on all the people that I've watched interact with loved ones that have died before them. You know, my own mother sat, laid in bed, and talked to my dead stepfather, who she said was in the chair next to the bed. And this happened so often that I believe that our loved ones come to be with us. Our loved ones who have not just are alive, but who have died before us, come to be with us, help us get from this world to the next. My mother also kept telling me about the angel that was sitting on the head of her bed. So if you hear that enough, then you kind of have to start thinking maybe there's something to that. Can't guarantee it, but I kind of I think so.
I agree. I mean, I've seen so much of it, and it's always amazing. I'll see orbs. If you take a picture sometimes on a person who's getting very, very close to transitioning, you'll see orbs in the picture. Um, there's all sorts of wonderful things that happen when someone's passing. I personally think it's a beautiful experience. I've seen many people cross over, and just to see the peace that they have and the transitioning has always been just a blessing to see. Can you please tell people where they can find you to get the booklet, or to get you to if they want consulting or whatever it is that you have for them? Where can they find you?
I have a website. You can Google Barbara Karnes. You can go to bkbooks.com and go. I write weekly blogs on different end of life subjects, and I have all of those on my website. So
Wonderful.
you can go through all the blog articles. They're short, they aren't long because we don't have a lot of attention span in our busy world today. Um, Also, the you can sign up for the blogs and get on the mailing list, and then every week you get an email with the blog on it.
That's
Um,
perfect. That's perfect. I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful for having you. You've been a wonderful guest. I want people to reach out to you and find out more about death and dying, because it's such an amazing, beautiful topic, and people shouldn't be afraid. And is there three things you want to say before you leave that are tips, or whatever you want to say?
I believe that dying is a sacred moment. It is a birth into the other world, whatever that other world is. And that everything we do leads up to that moment. Everything that we who work in end of life, everything we do leads up to that moment of death. And it is a sacred moment. It can also be a scary moment if we don't understand the process and what it looks like. And the emotions that we will all have can be tempered, can be smoothed out, can be eased with knowledge. And when you need the knowledge is before you need it. And so don't hesitate to learn now, whether you're 25 or 55 or 75. Don't hesitate to learn now what happens when our body dies. It will help us understand our loved one who's dying, and it will help us who are dying understand, because we're born, we experience, and we die. It's the name of the game.
It
All of,
is.
all of us will do this. So let's be a little more prepared.
Exactly. I love that. That's perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I will be reaching out to you very soon. And anyone who wants to know more about Barbara Karnes, it'll be in the description of the show. And it will be airing in a week or so. And I look forward to having more conversations. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And yes, let's do this again.